Douglas Finance Committee coming to order on April 9 at 7:04. And let's go around the table and identify ourselves for the record. Heather, you want to start?
Heather Moore.
Lynn Mazzoli.
Michael Hutnock.
Dick Vandenberg.
Carol Godwinski. Sandy Feners.
And I've heard from Ryan and Howard, so they're excused. All right, so we're first going to go through the special town meeting warrant. Hope everybody has a copy of it. And so what I'm going to do is just give a little summary of what the article is, some background if we need it. And then if we have comments or questions from the audience, we'll take those. If there are comments or questions from the Finance Committee, we'll take those, and then we'll vote to recommend as we have opportunity. So Article 1 is entitled Fiscal Year 2024 Budget Transfers and Amendments. This is a standard procedure that we do every year with spending and costs that have occurred, and it includes things like treasurers and collector wages, landfill maintenance, highway expenses, things like that. And the grand total for Article 1 is, I think there's a grand total.
It actually nets down to zero.
Oh, and that's down to zero, right? Because of,
Yeah.
you want to explain that, Jean, for the audience at home? There are 21 items here that have various funding amounts, so.
Good evening. Article 1 is what I call a cleanup article for the current fiscal year, where departments have come before me and saying, we need additional funds for whatever reason, that occurrences that happen during the fiscal year. Because it's done after the tax rate is set, it's always a transfer article. So you will see the article actually nets down to zero. So whatever is increased has to be decreased from something else. The only other source other than the general fund is the transfer from receipts reserved for appropriation. That's the $31,268. That is coming to cover the cost of the ambulance wages and ambulance expense increase.
Okay, thank you, Jean. Any questions from the audience? Anybody? On Article 1. This is for the special town meeting now. Finance Committee members, comments or questions? Okay, so we need a motion then to amend the action taken on Article 2 of the annual town meeting of Monday, May 1, 2023 by transferring from available funds the following sums of money as listed in the warrant before you in the fiscal year 2024 budget. Would someone make that motion?
So moved.
So Heather moves.
Second.
Seconded by Mike. Any discussion, anybody? So all in favor of recommending to the town meeting Article 1 is presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, Article 2, snow and ice transfer. Again, standard procedure. In case there have been changes in spending of costs, and this is for $75,000, Jean, is that correct yet?
That is the current amount that was approved by the town administrator deficit spend that account. We are not at that level yet. If this article is not needed, then we will pass over it at town meeting. We're not there yet.
When we're just at the line right now, I believe we'll probably maybe just a few thousand, and that'll be it, the most. But unfortunately, we had that last event the other day that ruined everything.
But Adam, you are looking at the eclipse.
No, I wish.
All right, so this is something we need to vote on then, right?
Yes.
So, all right, so we need a motion then to transfer from free cash the sum of $75,000 for the fiscal year 24 snow and ice account.
So moved.
Okay, Lynn makes the motion.
Second.
Second by Mike. Discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, so we recommend Article 2. Unanimously, Article 3, prior year bills. Again, standard procedure to take care of changes in spending and costs. We've got 3 items for, oh, that changed, okay. So we've got community media, cable, some public maintenance. You want to go over this, Gene, for us real quick? This is a,
Prior bills need to be voted at town meeting. If we are not told at the end of a fiscal year to encumber the funds, and, you know, we're finding some difficulties with vendors working from home. We had a couple of these come in
Yeah.
after, and I can't allow it to be paid out of the current fiscal year, so we need town meeting approval. These came to my attention after the last town meeting by various departments, so the town meeting has to vote to approve it.
and the total amount is as printed here, right? The 5639?
Correct. One will be coming from the cable receipts reserved for appropriation, the rest of them will be coming from free cash.
Okay, so we need a motion that we recommend the town vote to transfer from free cash $5,068.07 from cable receipts reserved, and then $571.28 for the total amount of $5,639.35. Sandy moves.
Second.
Mike seconds. All in favor of that recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Article 3 is recommended unanimously. Okay, Article 4, transfer from free cash to the opioid special revenue account. Total is $73,365.40. And this reflects, right, the Department of Revenue
Correct.
is letting you do accounting differently, right?
Correct.
Jean?
So last, in FY '23, any monies we received from the opioid went to free cash and then had to be appropriated. They did allow the law change this year, but because it became part of free cash, we have to move it from free cash to the special revenue account. It can only be used for this purpose, so that's why they lobbied to change that. So any receipts received in FY '24 will automatically go to the special revenue account. So this will be a one-time cleanup, and it will be able to spend without further appropriation.
I
Yeah,
have a
Carol?
question. If people that, when I meet at the post office, always are happy I ask these questions. What does opioid mean? What is that?
It's the drugs, the opioid drugs.
So we
So it's a
got-
settlement that we receive, and I'll let Matt or the chief
Okay, so
answer
we
further.
received some settlement?
We received 73,000 in
Okay.
FY '23.
Okay.
And like I said, DOR said it had to go into the general fund.
Right.
But because of that, you would have had to have town meeting, a special article. They lobbied to change that.
Okay.
So now it can become a special revenue account. So all the money will go in there.
Yeah.
But can only be spent for this opioid related.
Okay.
The town has not spent any funds
Right.
yet.
Okay. But now everybody knows, so that's good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any questions from the audience on that? Anybody? Okay, so we need a motion then that we recommend the town vote to transfer the sum of $73,365.40 from free cash to the opioid special revenue account.
So moved.
All right, Heather moves.
Second.
Lynn seconds. Any discussion, anybody? So all in favor that we recommend this to the town meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, Article 5, Capital Improvement Supplemental Budget. This is 6 items for $324,800. This again reflects the changes and costs and things since the last town meeting. This includes things like the EV charging station replacement, highway dump truck trial with plow and sander, that cost change, cable broadcast, et cetera, et cetera. Gene, you want to speak to that at all, or not?
Sure. The Capital Improvement Committee has approved this article. They also, as Dick mentioned, these were voted previously, and they didn't have the funds necessary to complete the project in this fiscal year. The difference between the annual and the special is the special can take effect after town meeting, so the day after. The annual, you have to wait till July 1st. So we thought it would be sound to actually supplement the purpose of the article to complete the projects in FY '24. You'll notice that most of this came from free cash. The cable studio equipment is actually a one-for-one. That was, it's going to be a transfer from an old article, Article 10 ATM 5216, $50,000. It was supposed to be used as a studio build-out that was never completed. That will be transferred to cover the cable broadcast server for $50,000. And the other items, roadways, EV charging, post office, highway sander, and school security, the reason why they're on here is so we can complete it as soon as possible. And like I said, especially the post office parking lot and the dump truck, those were already approved by the capital. We just need additional funds because they weren't sufficient to meet the needs.
Yeah, and I think one thing this reflects, and we've heard this from all our department heads and town staff, is how prices just keep increasing, and the wait time for things lengthens. So budgets that looked realistic even 6 months ago have changed already because of fluidity of prices and things. So that's reflected in this. Any questions from the audience? FinCom, any questions or comments?
For the EV charging station at $38,000, that's just for repairs or?
I'll let Dick, I don't know that I was present at that capital meeting, if you remember the commentary.
Well, Matt, I think you were talking about the EV things were older technology or something, right? And
No, it's new technology that doesn't work.
oh, I thought it was the old technology that didn't work.
Well, it's the old chargers that don't work, but it's new technology.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Those were grant funded, so the town isn't taking a loss. But the point is having chargers that are advertised as being here and they don't work for anyone. And we do have a steady stream of people who utilize them when they are up and running. I also just don't like the idea of having appliances out here that are taking up space and taking up parking spaces if they're not being used for the purpose that the spaces were reserved for. So that's a rip and replace, all 4 units. So there's 2 on each bollard or stanchion, whatever you want to call it. So we're taking out the 2 that we have out there and putting 2 new in.
How do people pay for that? Do they have a credit card or something? Are they
Yeah.
charging? Okay.
We have not charged anyone money because our stations are unreliable. So it's kind of,
So are we going to make back
you could pull up here with 0 charge, relying upon the charger you used 3 days before to work again. And if it doesn't work, it seems a little bit, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a really good customer relationship thing to do, to charge people money for something that they can't rely upon, because that's what that's for. Now, we don't really have to follow 30B with certain energy efficiency and electrification initiatives. We've got 2 quotes. They're both very close to each other. One is a proven player in the field called ChargePoint. They have a single unified software platform, so when you pull up the thing, you are interacting with an app on your phone that is one singular software package. The EV Connect system that we have out here, first of all, they're not good chargers. They were cheap. And secondly, there are 4 different software platforms that talk to each other when you try to log in and try to stuff. And they don't talk to each other. They update on different schedules, and the whole thing is a mess. So I have probably sent emails I never want anyone else to read to my friends at EV Connect. And I also tried to be sweet, and it just doesn't matter. The product is terrible. There's only one that works right now, and it was a replacement that we had under warranty that we were able to install with our own electrician. But even there are days when it does very bizarre things.
So
Long
Matt,
answer, short question.
so if this is approved by the town meeting, how quickly can the new,
Well, this is on the special, so the money would be available immediately. and
Okay.
We would get the work done as soon as we could.
is there a long wait time to get that stuff?
Not on these, I don't think.
Okay.
Is this to replace or upgrade?
effectively, it will be an upgrade because they work. But they will, in terms of the way someone with an EV would think of it, we will not be upgrading. They will be level 2 chargers, replacing level 2 chargers. But totally different vendor, totally different manufacturer, different commercial relationship.
In theory, is there a return on the investment with these?
So if we can get them to work on a regular basis, I've not written a policy for the select board to vote yet, but if I had my druthers, I would charge, because we can actually tailor, because you're using your credit card, the pricing structure. I would charge Douglas residents the town's rate for electricity, which is much better than the commercial rate, even better than your home, even if you're on good energy. The town pays less than that. And for out-of-town people, it'd be a charge session fee, and by golly, it's the best power in the world, you're gonna pay a little extra for it. You see where I'm going with it? I mean, a service to the community, and if anyone else needs it for convenience, they would pay like you would in convenience store prices for convenience.
But then if you're saying you would charge with a charge, so basically, all you're doing is taking it from this pocket, put it in that pocket. You're not doing anything to get back this $38,000 that we're spending.
I don't think that's what he said. I think you're going to charge them for the commodity, for the energy
Right, but we
usage.
have to pay for it.
Right, we have to pay for it, so that's a net zero
Right.
in theory.
Right.
If, like you're saying, well, the town gets charged for electricity, you're going to pass that on to residents of Douglas. But then there sounds like there could be an administrative fee tacked on top of that to non-residents.
For non-residents.
So you would get your $38,000 back over the course of time by that administration fee.
How long? I mean,
A long time. The purpose of these things is, this is not a return on investment project.
And
This
this
is-
is the thing, we're not in the gas station business. Why do we have to be in EV charging business to charge people's cars? You know, everybody needs gas. We need to put a gas pump out here. You know?
You laugh. You want to play that game? I'll play that game. Because I can buy gasoline through the state at a much lower rate and resell it to people for retail rates.
Maybe-
I don't have a problem with that at all.
I just, you know, I'm not the only one saying this. It's, why should the town be in the business of charging up people's cars, or filling people's cars up so that they can run?
Is it fair to say that if most people invest in a EV, they have a charging station in their garage?
You can't really have one without having one at your house. I guess it really just comes down to whether or not you agree with the policy. The policy that was established by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is to support the electrification of the car fleet. And the fastest way for them to do that was to support municipal fleets. So we will eventually not only have charging stations available to the public for their use, but like in my town in Westport, most of the time when you drive by a charger, it is a town vehicle that you got an incentive to buy at a lower price, and there's your charger to charge it up. Inspectors use it all the time because they're just going around local traffic in town. If you don't support the policy, you don't support the policy. But we have quite a few people that are come down the highway and they have the realization, the dramatic realization, they don't really have enough to get home, and they get either towed or they limp in here, and then they realize the stations don't work. So if you can make a little bit of money back on it, why not?
All right, Sandy?
You said if you can get them to work on a regular basis, what's the chance that we're going to spend this money and we're not ever going to be able to charge? Like, right now, we're giving away free electricity, so it's costing us. Continue, now we're spending this much, and then you say, if we can get it to work, it's still going to cost us even more.
It's, right, but it's like any electrical appliance anywhere in town hall. Is it going to work? Most of the time they do. I think what we're looking at here is unfortunately, the recommendation that was made by the Green Communities Expediter that did a lot of our projects that particular year to buy this specific brand of charger was bad advice. And they are defective devices and they don't work. ChargePoint, is what is used in Sutton, in Uxbridge, and all the other towns around, Medway. And I've never seen one down.
Okay, we good, everybody? More or less? Okay. Anybody else on Article 5 with the various capital improvement numbers? Okay, we good to make a motion then that we recommend to the town that they approve the following as submitted by the Capital Improvement Committee for the grand total of $324,800.
So moved.
Heather makes the motion, seconded by Sandy. Thank you. Discussion? All in favor of recommending this to the town meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries unanimously. All right, Article 6, the Municipal Center oil spill. This is for $77,680. This is an ongoing project
Forever.
and follows on approved funds from the special town meetings of 2021 and 2022. Anybody have any question on this in the audience? Finance Committee members, any questions?
How long does this go on?
I can answer that.
Okay.
I don't mind to answer this one.
Is there a light at the end of the tunnel?
So far, so they have to continue testing. So that's every so often they have to test. It's part of the DEP, rule to close this out. So this, knock on wood, I'm not gonna say it's the end of it, but this is like the last big thing of testing and everything like that. As long as the results come back good, their goal is to be able to try to close this out. So there's always that if something comes back, bad, then we have to continue. But our goal is, and our hope is that this will be the end of it.
When will that testing happen?
So it's going to start, once the funding's available, then they can continue. So
I see, okay.
It'll start, and it goes throughout, there's like several series, it's like 3 series, and they go through it, and then they get their results. Everything gets submitted to DEP in a big packet. They put all this packet, we just submitted one phase, and then once DEP gives the approval, we can close it out and continue on. So I'm hopeful. Like I said, again, it's all based on what comes back in the test.
Is this going through like the end of this fiscal year?
So this will go through the
25?
Yeah, 25. So
And
it'll
then-
continue from now and then all the way through 25.
All right. And then in theory, if all that testing came back good and clean, then it's
That's the
clean
goal.
bill of
Yep,
health and we're
correct.
over. Okay.
That's the goal. Again, knock on wood, I
Yeah,
don't want
yeah.
to, I never say never, but if one test comes back, then I don't know where, they have to change direction
Then it could
and
continue.
and address it. So, but that's where we're at.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions? Carol?
It looks like we put up 265 plus the 77. Are you getting money back on insurance, or is this in addition?
That's in
to what-
addition to the insurance. The insurance was $500,000, 500,000 they
Okay.
paid first.
Okay.
And then this is now on us.
Okay.
We shouldn't lose sight of the fact, this oil spill was $765,000. Don't spill it. It's not spilled milk.
Right. Okay, so we need a motion then that we recommend to the town to transfer the sum of $77,680 from free cash to work on expenses related to the municipal center oil spill. Lynn makes the motion, seconded by Mike, thank you.
Second. I think she beat me to it, but
All in favor, say aye.
I-
Aye, opposed, abstained, motion carries unanimously.
I'll second the next one and you can have credit for it.
Okay. Nice.
All right, Article 7, North Street Project, additional match. So $67,000, this reflects new costs associated with some redesigns having to do with input from the citizens. Bob, you want to just give a little background to that second for people at home? Yeah, come to the chair here. When was the meeting or meetings with the citizens on North Street? How long ago was that?
For the record, Bob and Eric, Economic Development. We had 2 meetings. One early in the fall, one late in the fall, or let's say summer and fall. Because of those meetings, there was some design changes. Walls were put in with steeper slopes. Sidewalks, we tried to keep on one side. We had a balloon study because we're putting up a 300,000-gallon elevated water storage tank. And some of the citizens were concerned they don't want to look out their back window and see a storage tank. So we did a balloon study. They put a big orange balloon, 10-foot balloon, at the height of the water tank, and we found out one resident could see the balloon. So we were pretty safe that the tank would be well hidden in the woods. That balloon study alone was, I think, $14,000. It was more than just buying a 10-cent balloon and 20-cent ball of string. It was a couple of tanks of helium and hauling it in, doing the study, and having a crew physically walk through every house in the surrounding area. So it was a day-long project. Plus the design and engineering that went behind it for line of sight view. We did there was another $22,000 item. We redesigned some of the water lines. Bob Sullivan and I went through the water line drawings, found out they were missing some valves. So that encases another hydraulic study, because you just have to make sure everything works. So there were some extra costs, design costs, that came up to $67,000 to finish it. We originally had $750,000 on the budget, of which a grant paid $529,000, and then the town contributed $100,000 through a town meeting, just round numbers. So this will finish it.
So just to be clear, everybody, if this money is approved by the town meeting, that means the design phase will be finished?
Correct.
Okay.
The design and engineering, it will be bid ready.
Okay.
And it's going to match up with the MassWorks grant I'm presently writing right now. Hopefully they come together in the fall.
Okay. Any questions from the audience on Article 7? Finance Committee members, any questions? Okay. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So we need a motion then to recommend to the town that they transfer the sum of $67,000 from free cash for the purpose of being able to finish the engineering study for the work on North Street. Sandy makes the motion. Second by Mike. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously for Article 7. So we're finished with the special town meeting warrant. Now we go to the annual. This is the budget and other things. So, Finance Committee members, did you get a chance to look at my little 3-paragraph message to the townspeople? Does that seem okay?
Sounds great.
So by consensus, we'll just have that as part of our, part of the warrant. That will be our report, so to speak. All right, so everybody look at their handout for the FY25 budget. We usually take Articles 1, 2, and 3 together because they all have to do with the budget, so we'll do that again tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the totals for each category in bold. So everybody have that handout? And then you in the audience particularly, yeah, this one.
Yep.
If you have a question about any of those bolded numbers, just say hold, and I'll make a note of it, and we can go back later. So we're going to go through the whole budget, and then if you say hold, we will look at it. Okay, here we go. So this is the general fund, and we're looking at, so we'll start with total selectmen, $380,624. Is that the right column, Gene? I think so. You're right, the second one from the right. All right, total finance director, accountant, audit, $206,811. Total assessors, $185,678. Total treasurer and collector, $339,793. Total finance committee, $60,406.
I'd like to,
You want to hold on that, Carol?
I guess so.
Okay. So we'll come back to it later, okay?
Yeah.
Total technology, $136,171. Total town clerk, $172,389. So that's the first page. We have one whole finance committee. Okay? All right, next page. Total building maintenance, $201,951. Total permanent building committee, $1,490. Total community development, $340,045. Total other general government, $350. And then the grand total for general government, $2,025,708. All right, total police. So we're in public safety now. $2,481,731. Total fire, $821,444. Total ambulance, $748,499. Total building department, $222,721. Okay, that's it for page 2. No holds from the audience, okay? So we're on page 3. Total tree warden, $13,550. Total civil defense, $51,368. Sealer of weights and measures, $750. Animal control, $41,260, for a total of public safety, $4,381,323. Okay, cemetery, $12,760. Total highway, $1,213,772. Total other public works, $43,598, for a total public works of $1,270,130. Total Board of Health, $131,803. So that's page 3, no holds for page 3, correct? All right. Page 4, total council on aging, $178,484. Total veterans, $58,147. Total health and human services, $368,434. Recreation expenses, $5,000. Memorial Day, $1,750. Total culture and recreation, $411,605.
Mr. Chair, you didn't read the library.
What?
Well, we zeroed them out, right?
It's not bold. He's not bold.
We missed the
Oh, it
library.
wasn't bold, sorry.
Miss the library, miss the park.
Whoops,
We missed the parks as well, too.
Miss the parks.
Not this.
did we?
Yep, total parks were $500. or
Oh,
something.
sorry, you guys.
Yeah, they weren't bold, so
Sorry.
it's going on.
Sorry.
It's the
All right.
number crunchers, gotcha.
Yeah, so total library, 404,355. Okay, total parks, 500. So total culture and recreation, 411,605. Okay? So Douglas Public Schools, total $17,276,455. And then the Valley Tech, Gene, can you just come to the mic and explain to the group what you explained to us? I think that would be helpful.
For the purpose of preparing the budget, because this is a raise and appropriate of the general fund, BBT is included in here, so we can kind of get to a total expenditure. But BBT has its own article, so presentation is here, but we are going to be taking it out of this, where it says insert budget on the town meeting warrant. It will be removed from here, and we'll have a standalone article. So if you're voting amounts today, the only part of this you'd be voting is the $500 for the representative. And the education would be $17,538,750, and that would also reduce the total budget.
So the 1848, 282, and 34, 211 are coming out.
They're coming out, they have their own
Yes,
article.
They have their own article. Any questions on that, anybody? So the new total for total education, well, so that total Blackstone Valley Regional is 500 then,
Correct.
for right now. Okay.
You'd have Medicaid reimbursement for $5,000.
Yeah.
And Norfolk County.
Is 256,795, and then the total education, 17,538,750, correct, Gene? Everybody got that?
Where are you getting that?
Pulling out.
Ah, right here. Okay, yep.
Everybody in the audience clear on that? Okay. All right. So then the total insurance, employee benefits and court judgments, $5,570,584. Total debt service, $2,004,878. So page 4, we had a little bit of change with the Valley Tech. Okay, everybody clear on page 4? And then we had one hold, Sandy, correct?
Yes.
All right, so page 5. So these are the summaries now. Total general government, $2,025,708. Total public safety, $4,381,323. Total public works, $1,270,130. Total health and human services, $368,434. Total culture and recreation, $411,605. So total education is that 17,538,750, correct? All right. Total insurance and employee benefits, $5,570,584. Total debt service, $2,004,878. For a grand total budget request, $33,471,412, right?
33571.
What did I say?
4.
Oh, so $33,571,412. And that's with that Valley Tech part taken out. Everybody got that? Any questions on that page 5, anybody? All right, so we have a couple of holds. So Carol, you had a question on Finance Committee, right? The 60,406?
Right. And I just wanted, basically, the salary is only $906, which I'm sure is for our minute taker. I don't want anybody to think that the finance committee's getting rich over here. And then the reserve fund is $50,000, it's in the reserve fund. Could you explain what the reserve fund is?
So the reserve fund is an account that the Finance Committee controls.
Right.
So it's for anything that's unforeseen or extraordinary.
Right.
So usually we try to handle as much as, Article 1 on the special is a bunch of articles.
Okay.
Had that happened after, if we needed the money after November before May,
Right.
we would come before the Finance Committee. If we needed money, say this didn't
Right.
meet the needs between now and the end of the year, then we'd look to reserve fund first.
And all the most of that usually goes back to free cash, right?
It does close back to free cash.
Want to keep people back.
Okay. I thought you were going to ask the $4,500 question, that's why I stayed up here. I thought you were interested. So the Finance Committee also mails out the town meeting warrant and pays for the postage. And we've been short on that, that's why there's a big increase. I anticipated the wrong question, Carol.
So the 9,500, Gene, is the cost to mail the warrants.
And the postage.
All set, Carol?
Yep.
And then page 4, Sandy, you had a hold on the library, 404,
Yes.
435,
When we
or
were-
355, I mean.
Yes, when we were reviewing the library before, I had a few questions for Justin.
Did you get the email I forwarded you?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, thanks for having me back.
I just have a question pertaining to why we need a full-time archivist. And I know that when we had your proposal in front of us, it kind of spoke more to like competitive spending, that other towns spend this much. So I just want a little overview of why what the improvements would be, what the benefits would be, rather than we need to, other towns are spending this much, we should spend this much.
Okay, like specifically on archivist or sort of more general?
More general.
Okay, yeah, so like the competitive spend, like the reason I brought up the average amount of spending was just to reduce my own anxiety in what I am asking for, because I realize it's a lot. So all of that was just math to show that, I'm comfortable with the request. It's not my goal, as it were. My goal is to meet as much needs as I can. And the number I was shooting for was around $400,000, since that's comfortably below that net spend. I wanted to do additional hours. I wanted to extend the schedule from 9 to 8 on Monday through Thursday instead of doing the 10 to 5, 11 to 8, 10 to 5, 11 to 8, because of a lot of feedback I got in our building survey. These are verbatim patron feedback. Not enough open hours. A lot of times when I do think of going to the library, it's because I have to print something fairly urgently, but it's always in the morning and you're not open yet. Would love more space for teens and tweens to connect in the evenings. Sometimes the hours do not coincide with my needs. For example, 11 a.m. opening and Friday closures. Limited number of hours open and erratic hours of operation. So there was a lot of cry outs to normalize it. So first I wanted to do that after, getting us adequately staffed for the schedule that we already have. Then I wanted to tack on some Friday hours, but as I indicated in the email, I couldn't make it work for a price I wanted. And I think I might be able to next year for an additional $14,000 if I can come back, because once I've had, 2 library assistants on the job for a year running the library in the evenings, I would like to be able to offer Friday evening hours specifically for young adults, youth, and teens in the town to have a place, a physical place in town to, replicate what we've kind of lost as a society with, the lack of cruising up and down Main Street, the lack of just hangout places for people to exist. I think we're seeing kind of a post-COVID hole and, you know, real life physical interaction with other human beings. And so, you know, we kind of want to meet that need too, on top of the digital stuff. I mean, the vast majority of this budget increase is going to just filling the vast chasm of Douglas's appetites for reading. $18,000 would be an increase to our circulation budget, $14,400 for electronic cost per search subscriptions, which is kind of a cheaper way of meeting the same goal. I checked right before I came to this meeting, and I'm over $25,000 behind on delivering electronic content that patrons have asked for over a month ago. And I'm $4,732 behind on delivering content that patrons have requested that does not exist in digital form anywhere. So if I don't buy it, they don't read it. Those are the needs that I want to fill. And the staffing, you know, I know there was a lot of question as to whether, you know, being open earlier and later versus being open on another day was the right call. And ultimately, it just comes down to the cost, because we get more out of stretching our days, squeezing a little bit more out of staff than we do trying to hire enough to cover another full day. And lastly, you had asked about programming, like what we plan on doing with the extra hours. So I wanted to reference again, the building program survey. We got 204 responses, and we asked people to rank what they wanted on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the most important for programming. Nothing broke a 3.5. So there's not a huge demand in Douglas for a lot of scheduled library programming. And what there was, like, you see like these scales of people either really wanting something or really not. So there's lots of different niches that we can make happy. The easiest thing we can do, and what I'm hoping to do, is just by virtue of having those extra hours on Mondays and Wednesdays, instead of only being open on Tuesdays and Thursdays after 5 o'clock. We'll be able to have more slots available for book clubs, because that's something that we can do and do well as a library, and to cheat with staff. But, you know, a lot is going to depend on who we hire, because I'm looking to hire 2 14-hour-a-week library assistants up front. And, you know, like the variety of programming that people do want. The very top is outdoor nature stuff, so stuff that doesn't even happen at the library. They want us to lead programs in other places. Followed by book clubs, followed by summer reading program, followed by gardening, followed by kids STEAM, then writing and art, concerts, adult crafts, and nothing else rated above a 3, so I don't think it's worth mentioning. But I'm hoping that we can find applicants who have passions, skills, expertises in areas where we can say, all right, this is your ball now. You're going to roll with it, make something take off. You know, that like our Fiber Art Friends craft nights on Thursdays. But, you know, a more variety of sort of self-directed, community-led, organic programming happening at the library, just because the space is going to be open. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that does. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you.
Bring that very well.
Thanks, Justin.
And like the questions you were asking at the last meeting, I know you got some flack for it, but I asked all of the same questions, you know, and in the email I sent to y'all too, in the process of coming to this budget. So we're on the same wavelength, you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So the motion for Article 2, so Article 1 we did by consensus, right? We agreed on the message. Article 2 would be to recommend to the town that we, to recommend the final budget number of $33,571,412. Anybody willing to make that motion? Glenn moves. Mike seconds. So the motion is that we recommend to the town meeting that the town approve the budget as proposed, $33,571,412, with the understanding that that Valley Tech chunk is its own article. Yep. Jean?
I think on this particular article, it's important to read the motion because the budget is funded from different funding sources as well. You have the motion in front of you.
I
You
do,
could just-
yeah.
So they understand where the funding is coming from for this article?
Well, I will defer to the group. You think the motion should have all that detail in it, everybody?
It
Because it
should.
will be at the town meeting, for sure. We're just
But no, but
recommending.
we recommend it to the town.
Recommended dates. I I say if Gene says we should read it.
Okay.
We should read it.
Heather, would you read it out loud for us then, as written for Article 1?
I vote to recommend that the town vote to hear and act upon the report recommendations of the Finance Committee and further to fix the salaries and compensation of elected officials as presented in the Finance Committee's FY25 budget recommendation, and further to approve a total budget of $33,571,412, consisting of $15,629,000 transferred from the reserve for reduction of excluded debt account, $385,000 transferred from the ambulance receipt reserve for appropriation, $10,000 transferred from the Wetlands Protection Fund, and the remaining $33,160,783 to be raised and appropriated, all as set forth in the column entitled FY25.
Yeah, second? Mike got the second.
Second.
Okay.
I didn't say anything, but
Oh,
I'll
really?
take it.
I thought I heard
No,
you.
that was Lynn.
But that's okay.
Everybody clear on the motion? Okay, so the motion is to recommend to the town as read by Heather. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstain? Motion carries unanimously. And then Heather, could you read, well, everybody, just look at Article 3 as in your handout. This is salaries of elected officials. You've got Board of Assessors for $2,900. Blackstone Valley Vocational School District Rep at $500. Moderator at $250. Board of Selectmen, $13,000. The clerk, including stipends, $99,867. Water Sewer Commission at $3,600. So you want to read that motion then, Heather, for Article 3, salaries of elected officials?
I vote to recommend the Finance Committee and the Selectmen Administrator recommended budget in the handout entitled The Finance Committee Budget Message for Fiscal Year 2025 for the purchase of funding the annual appropriation budget of the town for fiscal year 2025.
Okay, so Heather moves. Seconded by Mike, thank you. Everybody clear on the motion? Audience, everybody clear? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained. Article 3 carries unanimously. All right, Jean, can you come to the table again a minute and just explain for everybody why this is its own article for BVT, why it needs to be that way as opposed to our original vision?
I think this was the history about it. Douglas has before removed this article from the general budget because of the concern about the increase in costs, and there was actually one town meeting where it did not get voted the annual, it was actually voted at the special. So since that time, we've had put it as its own article to avoid confusion within the main article.
Is this kind of how we do it every year now?
It is how we do it every year, and actually it goes in line with how BBT actually presents the language for their budget. So we receive this language from BBT, but it's because Douglas has questioned their budget previously, and since that time, we just moved it to its own.
Any questions, audience? Comments or questions, Finance Committee?
Did we get a clarification on their wanting to redo the roof?
That's a further article.
Okay.
It's article.
Which got withdrawn, right?
Not the roof. The stabilization article was withdrawn.
Stabilization,
yeah.
Article 17 is the roof.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Jean. So the motion would be that we recommend to the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,882,492 for the operating and capital assessment by Valley Tech, et cetera, et cetera. So would somebody make that motion?
So moved.
Okay, Heather moves,
Second.
second by Mike. Questions or comments, committee members? Okay. All in favor of recommending that to the town, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained. Article 4 carries unanimously. All right, Article 5, transfer station. see. So this approves funding sources and amounts for the transfer station for FY 2025 in the total $361,800. Any questions from the audience on that? Finance Committee members, comments or questions? So someone move then that we recommend to the town to raise and appropriate $361,800. Yeah, Jean?
That's actually $301,800 from transfer station charges. Again, I'm going to ask Heather to read this one, and Article 6, because those have different funding sources.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't have to be Heather, I'm sorry.
Heather's good at it, though. Okay, Article 5, Heather?
I vote to recommend the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $301,800 from the transfer station charges and fees and transfer the sum of $60,000 from retained earnings for a total of $361,800 to operate and maintain the transfer station.
So Heather moves,
Second.
Mike seconds. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, Heather? You could do Article 6 for us too, please.
Article 6, I vote to recommend the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,581,065 from water and sewer charges and fees and the transfer of the sum of $356,658 from water sewer retained earnings. Retained earnings had $160,000, sewer system development had $45,000, water sewer development had $50,000, and the reserve for debt had $101,658 for a total budget of $1,937,723 to operate and maintain the water and sewer department.
Second.
Okay, Heather moves, Mike seconds. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Heather. All right, Article 7. For public educational and government access and cable receipts. So the motion would be to see if we recommend to the town to transfer the sum of $118,766 from these various receipts, et cetera, et cetera. So, somebody make that motion? Lynn? Thank you. Matt, you waving at me? Okay. Seconded by Sandy. Discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Article 7 carries unanimously. All right. Article 8 is recurring business. So this refers to assessors, ambulance receipts, cable receipts, state and federal grants, separate account funding, Chapter 90 funds, etc., for a grand total of is there a grand total?
No, this is really just a standard housekeeping item,
Do we, okay.
which allows, you see this every year.
Yep. So the motion would be to, see, I'm losing all my paper here.
This here. So I make a motion
Okay.
to move that the town vote to approve subsections A through I as printed in the warrant for Article 8.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Seconded by
Heather?
Heather. Discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained. Article 8 passes unanimously. Oh, here we go, I found it. Okay, Article 9 is personnel bylaw classification and update. Matt, can you just explain Is this kind of an annual thing that these categories and boxes change much, just for people watching at home?
So first and foremost, no one can be paid any rate until it is approved by town meeting. So all of the rates must be published and made part of an article that town meeting would approve. The tables have their own internal logic, the distances between steps and grades. Those are preserved. The only thing that typically changes from one year to the next is the COLA, cost of living adjustment. The COLA this year is 2% for non-union staff. The comp reform that was done last year is already in effect. So this is basically the comp reform tables as voted by town meeting, plus 2% bump. The one table that is rewritten and new is the call firefighter table. It reflects the need to align our call pay structure with pay structure included in the union contract. What we do is we use the same distances between steps and grades, but we discount the call rate by a percentage because the basic fundamental thing is that the level of commitment and responsibility is different for a full-time member opposed to a call member. Paperwork, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and a level of training sometimes involved. So there is this a small gap between what we will pay on an hourly basis for a full-time firefighter versus a call firefighter who is responding to a call. That was completely realigned this year. I think I explained this a couple times. I can't remember which board, though. It may have been the select board, but we have had to change the basis for how we calculate rates. We, in the past, always used the firefighter position as the basis for setting everyone else's pay. So if a firefighter also had a medic certification, they were bumped up because of the added qualification. In today's marketplace, the competition is vicious for paramedics. So we aligned the table to be competitive for paramedics and then established rates of pay from that. Okay?
Okay, any questions for Matt, anybody? Thank you, Pat. Can you go ahead and move that, Mike?
Sure. So I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town to vote and approve the personnel classification and compensation plans for fiscal year FY25 as printed in the warrant.
Okay, so Mike moves,
Second by Heather.
Heather seconds. Discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained. Article 9 passes unanimously. Okay, Article 10 has to do with transferring $1,345,000 from free cash to various capital projects. And again, this has to do with inflation and availability of things. Jean, are we okay with free cash in general?
We are okay with free cash.
All right. Any
You
questions?
want me to,
So $1,345,000 from free cash for this, correct?
so free cash was certified at $3,761,589. At the fall town meeting, we appropriated transferred $337,805.99. At the special, should all articles pass, that was another $568,241.43. If all of these articles are appropriated and passed and approved, that would be another $1,415,000, leaving a balance of $1,440,541.58. That would be left unspent, and that would roll into free cash for next year.
Okay. good.
The one article that may change on that is the $75,000 for snow and ice.
Yeah. Any questions on that? Michael, you mind?
Sure. So I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town to vote and transfer the sum of $1,345,000 from free cash to fund the following capital projects as associated costs, roadway paving, repairs and associated costs for $360,000. Post office HVAC unit replacement, $65,000. The municipal center HVAC units for $130,000. Post office interior and exterior painting for $60,000. Highway department loader with plow for $315,000. Highway department six-wheel dump truck with plow and sander for $285,000. Highway department lawnmowers and associated costs for $30,000, and transfer to capital stabilization fund for $100,000.
Okay, so Mike moves, seconded by Heather. Thank
Second by
you.
Heather.
Discussion, anybody? Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained. Article 10, recommended unanimous. All right, Article 11 has to do with ratifying the Douglas Firefighters Union contract executed by the Board of Selectmen. Matt, would it be fair to say this was fruitful and productive negotiations, done in good faith, et cetera, et cetera?
I'll sit here for both of these contracts.
And then also for the fire?
Yes, the negotiating team always involves the town administrator, chief of department, the chief's designee if the chief so decides, and one member of the select board. So when it comes to the floor for a vote at a selectmen's meeting, there's at least one selectman who's intimately involved in the entire process from beginning to end. And we check in with the rest of the select board on a regular basis in executive session to discuss strategy and the proposals that have been exchanged back and forth between the union and the town. So for both contracts, I would say we had a very swift and professional negotiation. We settled both contracts after 4 meetings and ironed out the details of the different initiatives that we're taking.
Was it the same select board member for each
No,
contract? No.
it was different.
Okay. You want to comment, John, on the?
Just echo what Matt said. It was very fair and on both sides, and went smooth, and both sides agreed, and very happy with the outcome.
Chief, how about for police?
Same, very good process for us.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'll make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town to vote and ratify the Douglas Firefighters Union contract executed by the Board of Selectmen and the Douglas Firefighters Union on April 2nd, 2024.
Okay. Second by Sandy. Discussion, anybody? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Michael?
I also will now make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town to vote and ratify the Douglas Police Union contract executed by the Board of Selectmen and the Douglas Police Union on April 2nd, 2024 as well.
So Michael moves.
Second.
Lynn seconds. Discussion, anybody? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Article 12, recommended unanimously. Okay, Article 13, amend general bylaw Article 8, wetland bylaw section 13. Is there a citizen here who can speak to this? It's a citizen's petition. Matt, do you want to try to represent the citizens? Sure. So Matt, Benoit,
Hi, for the record.
community development, right?
Yeah, Matt Benoit, Director of Community Development. This article was received by a citizen's petition to try to bolster the enforcement that the Conservation Commission has under the wetland bylaw. The original intent was to increase the fee from the fines from $200 to $300. There's also some additional language for enforcement that was added as well.
And Matt, can you share with the people here and watching at home, was there anything that triggered this to your knowledge that the citizens, was there some flooding or
Yes, there's
something that happened?
Yeah, there's some projects that needed some citations issued, and $200 just was a drop in the bucket for these large school developers. The most we can add is $300, so they wanted to hit them with the maximum amount of fine.
Okay.
But then
So-
there's a lot more stuff added here that beyond what was originally in that.
Correct.
And again, a citizen's petition. Where was the input from citizens in town and everything? When we used to do bylaws, we used to have a group that would get together, we'd hammer out the wording and stuff on it and come up with it. Now it seems like these things come from who knows where, and they just show up, and nobody gets to talk about them, and then they just slide right through. Nobody in town knows it's going through. There's no newspaper coverage of it like we used to have years ago. And I just don't think that things should be just slid right in front. Most of the people don't show up at town meeting because they have no idea that this is even going on. Where before, there was a lot of talk about it in the town, people got into it, they discussed it. There was newspaper coverage, and this is all like, it almost seems like backroom stuff. And then here it comes. And I don't like it done that way.
Well, it still has to come to the town meeting though, right?
Right, but people don't even know it's there.
Yeah.
You think, how many people show up at the town meeting?
Not very many.
Not very many.
You can count on your
When
hand the same
do
people,
know these
aside from
things,
us, that would have to
when
go.
there is a lot of this publicity, and there people have had input into the drafting of these things, it makes a big difference. People show up, but they vote for it because it's had a lot of work done on it. But these here that all of a sudden, it seems so sneaky because they just slide in.
Matt, what's the procedure to get something on the warrant? Is it
They submitted this
signatures?
citizen petition, takes 10 signatures to get it
10
on the
signatures?
warrant. Right, so it went to the Board of Selectmen, they sent it to the Conservation Commission for their recommendation, which they unanimously supported this petition.
So we
But-
got,
So 10 signatures get you on
exactly.
the warrant. Yes, Andy, go ahead.
It says here that they have the authority to enter privately owned land. Was that part of, what my impression of the citizens petition was that they wanted to raise the fine
Right.
and from 200 to 300, now all of a sudden we're entering private land.
Right.
Well, can't town officials do that anyway?
Yes.
So that's already,
I mean, if you have a burn pile out of control in your backyard, the fire guys could just come on your property, right?
okay,
That's public safety though.
yes.
You know, you could run around the rest of the town.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, Matt, it's citizens petition, and
Right.
it's up to the town meeting, I guess, right?
Right.
Could you speak to some of the policing powers and the law enforcement? You know, it mentions inside of here, you know, that the chief of police could take legal actions, and, you know, other officers having policing powers shall have authority to assist the commission in enforcement. What types of actions are we discussing?
To be honest, I'm not entirely certain on that.
But we don't have one of the citizens here, do
Right.
we?
And again, that's one of the things that get brought up when you have a group that's discussing it and bringing these things forward.
So you might recall at the special town meeting in November,
Yeah.
We had the citizens.
we had one, and we voted not to approve it because we had,
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
nobody had come to us, there was a lot of gray areas, so,
This is another citizen's petition by somebody else.
and those citizens came to the finance committee to make their case, right?
I mean, I'm not opposed to wetlands protection. I'll put that on record right now. But there are certain circumstances where I can envision a landowner having a piece of property with a waterway that runs through their property. If a tree was to fall down, a large pine tree, let's say, falls down into that riverway, now it's blocking, backing up, you've got an ice dam or something to that nature, and it's diverting water into that person's property, causing damage. I would have full support, or I would give full support for that landowner to go in to save their property from further damage by removing that tree from the wetlands. In this article, you know, my question would be, is that person liable to get arrested by the police department for saving their house effectively? You know, or is it just a $300 fine for removing that tree if they were to so do so?
I believe it's just a $300 fine, and it has to go to the Conservation Commission for them to vote to issue that $300 fine. Now, in case like that, where that might be kind of an emergency, that might be something they file an emergency certificate for and get that approved by the commission.
Right, so basically, now you gotta go to the Conservation Commission to get approval, which takes
Right.
weeks or months.
And I can rip up my chainsaw in 5 minutes and
Right,
cut the
right.
log out of the way and I'm done.
Right.
You know?
So that's why.
Who's going to police it if you do it?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Well, you
If
don't-
somebody was to do that and a neighbor or a land abutter was to
Yeah.
take issue and say,
Right.
so-and-so's,
You got a neighbor,
Reckon
you gotta
the
have
wetland.
lights,
yeah,
and they
they're
call
cutting
it-
trees down in the wetlands and the reality was it was an ice storm and the tree
Right.
fell and I'm trying to salvage and save my own property.
So the commission has their level of authority to enforce these sorts of things anyway. This just gives them, under Chapter 131, Section 40, they have their authority to do so. This just gives them additional authority and request police presence in order to enforce some of these things. It's really.
People vote for this, they're out of their mind.
So, group, do you think this falls within the jurisdiction or interest of the Finance Committee?
I do because they're collecting more money.
Correct.
Okay. Just checking. So if we have a motion to approve, but everybody can vote the way they want, I guess. But any more questions about this for Matt? Mike, you want to make the motion? Okay. Would anybody like to make the motion?
No.
I'll make the motion, and then we'll, because you have to vote on it. So you have to make the motion regardless of what we want to do. So I will make the motion for the town to vote to amend the general bylaws of Article 8 Wetlands, Section 13, as printed in the warrant.
And I'll second it, just to get it on the table. So Heather made the motion, I seconded it for Article 13. Everybody clear on the motion?
Right.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no.
No.
No. So we vote no unanimously, and our grounds would be something like we never had a chance to,
They didn't
Talk
come
to
and
any of the
present the
citizens
material,
about it, right?
We could not sit there.
and we just had a lot of questions. Right. Okay. So lots of questions. As I recall, back in November, when someone from the audience asked us why we voted no on something, our answer was because we just heard about it. We just had lots of questions.
And the town council.
And this is the same kind of thing? If somebody asked, we just say, we had a lot of questions about it,
And I
right?
think people in town have questions too. And we just heard about it. Nobody else is hearing about it. So they haven't had a chance to have questions. This is why these things shouldn't go through like this. They should be more,
Transparent.
more transparent so people know it. It's affecting people's properties.
Matt, can you give us the background to the solar while you're here for 14?
So this same article was before the Finance Committee for fall town meeting.
Right.
It did not make it through the floor of town meeting. This is the exact same article repurposed. We have held a public hearing with the planning board. It's the exact same language that went before this committee in the fall. And the planning board voted unanimously to support this. These are changes recommended by the Attorney General once the solar bylaw was approved. And these are also vetted by town council.
Yeah, it was approved by the AG and unanimously by the planning board.
Right.
Yeah. Mike?
I will make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town to vote and amend Section 6.8 of the Douglas zoning bylaws as written in the warrant.
Okay, Mike makes the motion. Second by anybody?
Second by Heather.
Heather seconds. Discussion, anybody? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
I think I'm just going to abstain.
Did you vote Sandy or not?
Yeah, I think it's, I'll just say aye.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes and 1 abstention. Okay. All right. Transfer land ownership, map parcel. Bob, this is you, I think, isn't it, or not?
This is me.
Is this you, Matt?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you give us a background for Article 15?
Sure. So the Open Space Committee, upon realizing that this land was taken by tax title,
Oh, right.
made the recommendation to the Conservation Commission to support transfer of ownership from the town of Douglas to the Conservation Commission for protection in perpetuity. This was actually identified in the Douglas Master Plan in 1998 for potential open space acquisition, Castle Caves Conservation Area located near Douglas Sutton Town Line. In the northern part of town, this area contains unique visual characteristics to be valuable for hiking, wildlife observation, and other passive recreation. It is a landlocked piece of land. There's no access to it currently. However, we do understand that there is a filing coming on this large parcel to the south, at which time we may ask that developer to provide us with access to this open space so that we can put in trails or whatever is needed to access and enjoy the beauty of this recreational parcel. But in order to do so, well, to protect it in its natural state, it would have to be transferred to the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, everybody, so if you can imagine if you're on North Street going towards Sutton, right when you hit the Sutton Town line to the left is Brown Road. So if you kept going west into the woods in there, that's the land they're talking about, but there's no access to it currently, right?
Right.
Over someone else's property.
There's a little brook there, I think, maybe, but.
Right.
Any questions for Matt Benoit, anybody?
Could I speak
Carol?
on this?
Sure.
Okay, I was one of the people too who said we should get Castle Caves and have town ownership. But Castle Caves is not this entire 58 acres. It's a small area of it, okay? And I agree, and I've been up there, and it's a pretty cool place, and I think it's fantastic that the town has it. The town does have it now. They have it, okay? There's no reason it has to go to the Conservation Commission. The town now has it, okay? Nobody's gonna go take Castle Caves. The town now has it. The thing is that we don't know at some point what, maybe a portion of this land, we may do something with. Even what I'm seeing, even this part with this thing to the south, where they're doing something. If the town has it, perhaps the town could sell a piece of it that we don't need as much to these people to get parking area, places where we can get in there, park a few cars. The thing is, as long as the town owns it, we have control, okay? We have the control. I don't see where giving it over to the Conservation Commission and tying our hands behind our backs does any good. So my thing is, I was very instrumental in this, and in fact, when they were selling off the tax title stuff, I went to the tax collector and said, please do not sell this lien. I got Bill Cundiff involved. I said, she's not listening to me. Will you tell her, do not sell this lien? So nobody has been more in favor of protecting Castle Caves than I have. I just don't think, as long as the town owns it, we have control of it, we don't ever have to allow anything to be done there. But if we find a way that we could improve it, or who knows, and I don't know what these ways would be, because we don't know what's in the future. But I do know that the town has control, and I just don't think we should give it over to the Conservation Commission.
Matt, you want to respond to that?
So for passive recreation uses, parking could be part of that, as if it's under control of conservation. That's not one of those protections that prevents from parking from being erected. That's to enjoy the recreational use thereof. I'm just going with what's consistent with the master plan, what's recommended by the Open Space Committee and supported unanimously by the Conservation Commission.
I was involved with master plan when we came up with this, so I do know what master plan wanted. And if by not giving it to the Conservation Commission, can we still not use it for passive recreation?
You still could.
Of course we can. We can do everything that the Conservation Commission wants to do with it.
So what's the benefit of the Conservation Commission taking it over from the town?
because they can stop anything else from ever being done on it.
Right,
At
it'd be,
that point, the town would not be able to vote to sell it off.
right, it'd be protected in perpetuity
Right.
as open space.
And I'm not saying they should sell it off, that's for sure.
I think we have a question from the online audience.
Oh, Bob Sullivan, where are you, Bob?
I'm here.
Oh, okay, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious, if it's in conservation trust, do we still have the ability to potentially explore a well at that site
Yes,
for a public water supply?
I'm going to go to Matt Benoit for that.
that's a good question. I'm not entirely sure.
Matt Wojcik, any idea? Nobody seems to know, Bob.
I mean, I know in other towns we've done it where we've gone and taken the conservation land to do a public water supply. I'm just not sure how it's written in the Douglas bylaws, if anything would prevent that. I know it's very wet in that area. If Carol walked it, she can probably verify that.
It is.
So there is potential that there could be a source for water there. So I don't know if it'd be worth holding off for another town meeting and potentially looking at exploring the option for that potentially being another source that's away from all our other sources in case anything catastrophic happens in the area of the other sources.
Well, Bob, right now, and it's owned by the town, so obviously you would have the right to go in and explore, right? So why, again, another reason, why tie your hands? You've got the town, and you can't sell it unless the town votes. You
Right.
can't the town selectmen go, okay, next week we're gonna sell it. No, they can't do that.
So Bob, what's involved in looking for new land or land for a new well?
We have to drill some wells so that we can draw some water and check the volume and, the quality of the water.
I mean, currently you could do that now up there, right?
Correct.
So you're wondering if it goes to conservation, if that would prohibit you from doing it?
Correct.
I see. Yeah, I don't know. Nobody seems to know, but that's a great question.
Who has the answer?
I would think that'd be land council.
We know
Okay.
we need wells,
All
right?
right.
We know we need water.
Bob, anything else while we have you on here?
No, that's my only question for this area.
Well, so noted. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right.
I say it stays in town ownership. It's gonna be protected because the town owns it.
I would like to comment and say that I tend to agree with some of what Carol has said, that, if you're talking of developing this, trail systems, again, you're going to want parking, you're going to want an area that people can access this to. That takes money to build that, right? Whether you're talking a trail access, even if it's just a parking lot to fit half a dozen or a dozen cars in. One means that I can foresee doing that is if, again, the land to the south is to be developed, the land developer is going to have all the machinery and equipment there to open up a parking area. And one way to get a land developer to do that for you is, like Carol said, you could give them a portion of the land and say, in exchange for this, you now have an extra acre or two to build another house on or another structure on if you open up parking for 12 cars or something for us. So I think, again, that gives us an option that the town could open this up for public use without costing us a penny. But if it was to go into the Conservation Commission, if the landowner granted us access through their property, now we would be subject to having to come out of town pocket, our general fund, to raise and appropriate funds to create access points and parking and such. I think it would give us more ability and leverage in the future to keep this under the general town ownership and not lock it up into the conservation.
So the land is currently owned by the town?
The
correct?
town owns it.
Yeah.
To Carol's point, we own it
We
now.
own it now.
We can protect it now as a town in general. It's got to go to town vote at a town meeting, and the majority of the folks in that audience would have to say, sell it, And I think you've got enough people. I mean, again, you know what the future holds, but
Right.
you would need enough people in that audience to sell it for some other purpose. But if it went into conservation, it's use restricted at that point. You know, and it would be up to conservation to relinquish that use restriction, would be my understanding. I'm not a land council, so don't quote me on that, but my understanding would be the whole point of putting it into conservation's protection is they control the use restriction of it.
I have a question. What happens with wells, like when they put in a well, does that disturb anything? Is that disturbing to this property?
Well, we got.
Well, you would drill the well, you would have to clear out an area for the machinery to
Right.
get in
Has
there.
anybody been to this area?
I have.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that too?
Oh, yeah.
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 It's fabulous.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it
Yeah.
go to conservation myself.
It's a good hangout when you're a teenager in town.
There's no road there.
To have it
You just cross through the
preserved in
woods.
its present state would be
See,
priceless.
teenagers don't worry about if there's a road or not sometimes. They just
Yes, they don't know it's like this, right?
Right.
Just park your car in the street and you trudge through the woods and you find it.
Well, I think most of it, a lot of it is wetlands, so
Exactly.
Yeah.
it's, but you know what? I just say, as long as the town owns it, the town has control, they can preserve it. I just can't see,
I know.
put tying your hands behind your back.
I just think conservation government will serve it the way that it is. But y'all never.
Right.
Want to go for the motion there, Mike, and we'll see what happens?
Sure, I'll put it on the table and make a motion that the town, I'll make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town vote to transfer ownership of map parcel 118-2 from the from the town of Douglas to the Conservation Committee, or take any action relative thereto.
Okay, I'll second that. So everybody clear that currently it's owned by the town, and the motion would be that we recommend it go under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. That's the motion. Okay? So all in favor, say aye. Aye.
No.
Well, I haven't asked for the no.
Sorry.
So anxious to vote no.
Sorry.
Opposed, say no.
No.
Any abstains? So we have 2 yay and 4 nay. Okay. All right. Stormwater bylaw. Matthew, we still have you here at the table.
Yes, sir. Okay, so,
Walk us through the backstory there for
okay, so,
for our listeners at home.
right, so we are an MS4 community, municipal, oh geez, I forget what the 4 S's are.
Separate
but-
storm sewer system.
Thank you. Separate storm sewer system community. And we are under guidance from the state to enact certain rules and regulations governing stormwater, and one of these is a general bylaw for stormwater. So this actually made it to the select board in 2018, and this was proposed to be administered by the planning board. It never left the select board, it never made it to town meeting. Given a lot of the stormwater calls that our office has been receiving in the last 6 to 8 months, it's been constant. So this bylaw kind of came about, we used a lot of the original template, we had this vetted by town council and our stormwater consultant, and we put this forth to the select board for their consideration for the warrant. This would also be followed by the Conservation Commission they'd be administering this bylaw, but they'd also have to adopt their own policy at a following meeting, which would have a lot more of the meat and potatoes and kind of the administrative and the enforcement ends. But this stormwater bylaw, I'm sure there's plenty of questions, but I'm happy to answer any of them.
So town council has seen it,
Yes.
correct? And it basically brings us more in line with state regs.
Yes.
Right.
Of course, a lot of the problems you've had with the solar, that big solar thing and everything else.
And CRG. And we're getting lots of calls off of just regular stormwater issues, and there's one article on here for an easement that's happening later, but
What's that?
there's calls are always coming in from roads and roadway washout and all sorts of developments that it's nonstop. We get them every time it rains. Someone calls about some property, and it'd be nice if it could have been administered by a stormwater bylaw and there could be a storm system to cover the stormwater. But
So what does this article do to change current situations, current
this-
bylaws that would prevent those calls from coming in?
Sure, so what this does is anyone who's disturbing an acre or more would have to file a stormwater permit with the Conservation Commission.
By disturbing, what's your definition of that?
Disturbance is defined here in the bylaw. It's disturbances, construction activity, action to alter or disturb existing vegetation and/or underlying soil of a site such as clearing, grading, site preparation, e.g. excavating, cutting, and filling, soil compaction, and movement or stockpiling of topsoils.
So if I own a plot of land and I go in to thin out the forest and take down the dead standing trees, I'm not clear cutting. but I'm
Right, you're not
still
taking the
cutting.
stumps out and disturbing the soil.
Well, I'm still disturbing soil because if I'm going in there with a log sled or a crawler, a dozer, or some piece of equipment, I'm going to disturb the soil. And I'm doing that over the course of an area larger than an acre. Do I need to pull a permit for this?
It depends on the area that's being disturbed, not the acreage of the parcel. So it's the area of disturbance.
So the roadways in which I travel, if the totality of those added up to an acre, then yes.
Yes.
But then you're also cutting, because it said cutting. It
Right.
didn't say anything
Yep.
about taking out the stumps here.
Right.
It said cutting, so it's very easy to go over that 1 acre. 1 acre is not very big, it's
No.
by 200.
Yeah, it's a pretty small area.
Yeah.
And if you're cutting a couple of cord of wood to put away for the winter time, a homeowner here in town that owns, 2, 3, 4, 6 or more acres, you could get there pretty quickly.
Well, kind of what, well, first off, then they can have, they're gonna do their own procedures, so we don't know what those are. We don't know what they're gonna go with. And then the other thing though is, when I'm watching on TV in the middle of the night and I can't sleep, and I really can't sleep, but anyway, when I'm watching, I hear them talking about, well, an acre really isn't enough, but we gotta get this through, then we can go. I heard talking this law was 15,000 square feet that they need to have some control of. So, anybody can bring up these, and hear people say that. So it's like, again, here's another one of these things. It was no input. Again, the same thing, not that it wasn't, this one wasn't a citizen petition, but again, were there hearings on it? Were people in town are able to give their input? People who might be affected by it? People who may know more than people in the town hall draw these things up? No input from the general public. There's nothing been in the newspaper on it, because we don't get any.
Yeah, nobody gets
newspaper.
newspapers anymore,
Or
Carol.
even the Tribune or anything like that. It's all like, nobody, people aren't even gonna know what's going on, and then all of a sudden it's in the law, and they never even knew it was before them.
Would this also be capture, say tillage, if somebody's putting in a vegetable garden?
No, that's one of the exemptions,
That's
actually.
one of the exemptions?
Yes.
So agricultural use, if somebody's cutting the hay in a field or...
Right. Normal maintenance, improvement of land and agricultural use, only to such extent the activities are allowed under the Wetlands Protection Act, as amended, set forth therein, allow certain activities on land and agricultural use when directly related to production or raising agricultural commodities, maintaining existing landscaping, gardens, lawn areas associated with single-family dwelling, construction of fencing to not substantially alter existing terrain or drainage patterns, normal maintenance and improvement of town Douglas publicly owned roadways and associated drainage infrastructure, and emergency repairs to stormwater management system or features that pose a threat to public safety or other action as deemed necessary by the town department or board to abate such a threat to public health or safety. Those are the exemptions.
And one of the things I noticed here is that the conservation is going to appoint someone who is going to have the final say. Cannot, basically, you can't, you have to go to court if you don't agree with them. There's no, you can't go to, where is it?
Arbitrate,
Yeah. Or-
mediate.
Yeah, or even go to the town and have them look it over and say, is this right? I want somebody to, no, this thing is final. And you're going to court in Worcester if you're not happy with it.
Right. Standard appeals for anything that's conservation.
Decide that and pass it on.
So I'd like to see this have a lot more input from the general public, and I'd like to see it have a lot more exposure to the people who live in town. It's going to affect, which is everybody, because rain falls on everybody.
Aren't there public hearings for stormwater bylaws, though?
This is a general bylaw, so that there wasn't a public hearing requirement. If it were a zoning bylaw, it'd have to have a public hearing with the planning
Oh,
board.
and then it's a general bylaw, so it only needs a majority, not even a
Right.
2/3. How interesting. My, that's a fast way to get it through, isn't it?
All right, so again, this is kind of reactionary to a lot of the issues we've been having. We understand that this.
You guys sign this minute?
This has gone through several Board of Selectmen meetings, several Planning Board, and several Conservation meetings as well.
But
And Concom and Planning Board are still set to make recommendations on this at their upcoming meetings.
the big problem that you have with that one over on Oak Street, that had stormwater stuff on it.
Oh, yeah.
That had to have stormwater. That had to have all engineering for stormwater. Somebody screwed up. But that wouldn't have made any difference with this thing. Because
So those, the planning board and conservation, and so they have public meetings regularly anyway, right? Where they talk about this.
Yes.
A specific dedicated public hearing like you advertise for zoning, that didn't happen.
Right, they're not advertised publicly in the papers or anything because they didn't have to hold public hearing, but they've been having public meetings about it consistently for the last several months.
Yeah.
right, and no one ever read this out loud. You hear them talking, you have no idea what the details are. Nobody who happens to be listening has any idea what the details are because nobody's ever read it out.
So maybe we should make a recommendation that next year when we're going through the budget process, we get them in early, like what is going to be on the town warrant.
Yeah.
And that way they come before, because
But we got the rough draft 2 weeks ago, but
but they keep on giving us gotchas, right?
Right, yeah.
And so if they want us to make a recommendation, I think it
We
behooves
need more
them
information.
to come in front of us, because we're making the recommendation to the town, and we're befuddled
Yeah.
on what this is.
so why don't you make a motion, Mike? And we can get
I'll
it
let somebody
second.
else do this one again.
Lynn, can you make,
No.
no, you don't want to? Heather, can you do it?
Do this.
Article 16, okay?
I will make the motion that the Finance Committee recommends the town to vote to approve the revision as printed in the warrant for the stormwater bylaws, Article 16.
Okay, I'll second that. So the motion then is to recommend that the town approve it as written in the warrant. So let's just have, so all in favor, say aye.
Oh, no, I'm not.
It's like, wait, what?
I take it back.
Opposed, say no.
No.
So we're unanimous in our noes. And that's just because we feel there are a lot of unanswered questions. Is that a good response, everybody?
It's confusing, there's a lot of pages, and somebody who's going to get this is going to look at it and go, next.
Yeah.
and not
But
even
if
know
they're
what
looking at us to make a
Yeah.
recommendation, I
Yeah.
think it behooves whatever committee it is to come forth and talk to us.
Right.
I agree.
And we have public hearing right now. This is an opportunity for them to be here.
Right.
If they're throwing something on the warrant and they want us to recommend it,
You need to give us,
they need to be timely too as well.
Well, not only that, for us, yes, to make a vote and a recommendation on this, I agree with you wholeheartedly. My other concern is, I think, and I don't mean to
Yes.
put words in Carol's mouth, but I echo the concern of, does the general public and the residents of the town, do they understand the gravity of this? And when they come to town meeting and they vote yes or no on this, do they really understand what they're voting on, right? So the person that heats their house with cordwood and they cut it on their own property, do they understand that if they vote yes on this, they're potentially voting to get themselves in trouble if they don't file a stormwater petition and file all the permitting processes on that, if they're pulling enough
Correct.
wood off from their lot and they're disturbing the ground enough? My concern is for the general public, I would, maybe I'm wrong in this, but I would hope that people understand what they're voting on when they vote up or down on these things. And by the fact that we have nary a general resident from the town in the audience tonight, to me kind of speaks volume that people don't know this is coming, and they're going to maybe see this for the first time when they see our recommendation come in the flyer, or maybe when they show up at town meeting, if they didn't read our flyer, because that's a possibility too.
When they get to town meeting, they're not gonna read all those pages.
Right.
Who's gonna read all those pages?
And if this is to get hustled through and not many people ask questions, I think, some of us here tonight will be there and asking some of these same questions and kind of bringing those options up so people are aware and acknowledge what they're voting on. But again, my concern is to people, there's a lot of words and legal jargon inside of this, and do we really understand what the context in something like this? So I think, to your point, the sooner we get it out and get the word out, the more we can research and understand and absorb it, and then make a conscious decision whether this is a good thing for the residents or a bad thing for the residents.
Okay, let's carry on, everybody. Article 17, BVT roof reconstruction and replacement of rooftop HVAC. Heather, do you mind reading that one?
Did we get a, can I ask a question before we go
Sure.
and read it? So I think Matt's going to come up and talk to us.
Did we what?
Get clarification from Dr. Fitzpatrick about what exactly is going to be.
So on March 14th, the BVT school committee had another meeting where they voted the language that they wanted to come back to the towns. Separate and apart from BVT's effort, several towns, in coordination with bond council, wrote what they were willing to support. And those 4 towns were Millbury, Northbridge, Upton, Douglas. A lot of work went into paring down what it was that we thought we could recommend to the town. And for the 4 of us, it is, and you guys had meetings with Dr. Fitzpatrick, so you heard a description of the project. Those 4 managers and administrators recommend to our towns that you only vote to fund the portion of the project that is not funded by a Massachusetts School Building Authority grant program. So the dialogue was the superintendent asked for $10 million. And if you are a town and you vote the authority to raise that 10 million, then that's what you're giving BVT the authority to issue a bond for, $10 million.
That's 10 million each town.
No, 10 million total for our
10 million
project.
total, okay.
Your share is by the sheriff's, there's a whole formula.
13%.
Yeah. Kind of knocks me off my train of thought.
Do a bond, something.
Recommendation that's being made to you as one of the 4 towns that differed from that is that he, the superintendent, and the BVT school committee must go to the Massachusetts Building Authority, School Building Authority, get approval for their project and a funding amount. And only then will we, that the only authority we're giving him is to raise through a bond enough money to cover the difference to fund his project. So he's not getting authority to raise 10, he's getting authority to raise what he needs to do his project after he gets a grant. That's contingency number 1. Contingency number 2, which may apply to several towns beyond those 4, so I had at least one conversation with a town manager who was very much in agreement, that we recommend to our towns that you vote to send this to the ballot for a debt exclusion vote, so that the taxpayer gets to pay, decide whether they want to raise these money through bond. The current debt that we pay on behalf of BVT is excluded debt, so we are not doing anything new and different. That debt issue is over. This is the last payment this year. That $34,000, whatever it is the last installment on existing BVT debt. So he is looking to go out and get another bond now to do a project. We didn't want to be opposed to the notion that aging HVAC units on an aging roof don't deserve attention, and we don't want to neglect our regional voc tech school. We just wanted to make sure there was significant financial discipline and legal constraints put on what the money was raised and used for. So that's how we got to this point. The language was circulated not only by bond counsel for those other communities, which happens to be Koppelman and Page, or KP Law, that many people have heard of, but our own bond counsel in the town of Douglas. We have the same bond counsel as BVT. This is a very well-known bond counsel firm known as Lock Lord, which frankly is top shelf. KP Law is as well, I think, but Lock Lord is very great reputation in the industry. So the language that was put into the warrant by the select board has been reviewed by BVT's counsel as well as our own, and they have both told me on the phone Friday that they would write a bond opinion based on the language. So in other words, they would not stand in the way of the bond being issued with the language that is proposed in the Douglas warrant. Okay.
So as is, it's good to go based on what we wanted. That's what and Jean.
If you all support.
And Jean's likes it too, likes the wording.
I don't know that any of us really likes it, right? But at the end of the day, bond counsel for the town of Douglas is okay with this language.
So Matt, in terms of a little backstory line for the voter information sheet, is there anything else to say other than BVT needs to pay for a new roof? I mean, if the citizens are getting warmed up for the town meeting, they want to know the backstory to this, what would be another thing to add?
Well, first of all, the superintendent usually attends our town meeting, and he'll be able to answer the question. Okay. Or our school committee member from that represents Douglas can do it. The reason why I say we may not all like it is this is really wordy. Okay,
Carol,
so
you could read this to put yourself.
Yeah, you can go to sleep, just say this one 10 times fast, you'll be asleep by 5. So that's my problem with it. This could be much more elegant. I just explained it to you, and it didn't take that many words, right? So it really could have been a lot shorter, but you are on very dangerous ground to argue with bond counsel about what they want written into something.
Yep.
It is rarefied air that they breathe, so we just go with what they say, because they have to go to the market and defend the agreement with the lenders, the purchasers of the bond, that they have a rock-solid sense of what the money's going to be used for, and that's why they're buying the bond. So it's up to bond counsel to decide that. They're okay with this. As far as, is there a backstory? Let's just be really clear. This is an HVAC project. He has a lot of aging units on the roof that he needs to be replaced, and that is the lion's share of this cost. It is a big building, it's 300,000 square feet, so the roof will be millions, but it's not going to be 10. No, it's the 24, 32, however many chillers he's got up on his roof or air handlers he has on his roof that he needs to replace.
Okay.
It's just not the coolest thing. They don't leak, they don't make noises at you, they don't do the thing. Explaining a project as fixing a leaky roof is way more compelling than talking about fixing air conditioners. Yeah.
Okay.
So if they don't get any money from this Massachusetts school construction grant, does this thing still go through?
Fascinating question, right? So I asked bond counsel, because we don't do enough debt issuance to get in the habit of being expert on it, right? Because I was concerned that if there were multiple versions of the language passed, would it even have a authorization?
Yeah.
And I was assured that that's not the case, that in so many words, as long as the more general authorizations include what is intended in the more specific authorizations, if you have enough to pass all of it, right, the most restrictive language would apply, but you'd still get your project. So let me make this real. If Milford votes to give BVT the authority to issue a bond for $10 million.
Yeah.
And the town of Douglas says, no, and Upton said, no, you can only raise as much as you need to cover the difference between $10 million, which is the project price, minus a grant. And and you don't get a grant, well, let's say you do get a grant, then the only thing you're going to raise is enough to cover the difference, irrespective of the fact that Milford gave you the authority to raise 10, provided we have enough votes in our camp. Does that make sense? So if he needs 9, so if he gets 9 to give him the authority to issue a bond for 10 million, he doesn't need us. And all this language hullabaloo is nothing.
Right.
But I think, if you follow me here, we've got 4 already.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure, frankly, I would be surprised if Hopedale didn't vote the whole thing down, based on their current relationship with BVT, that he's in trouble here. I don't think he counted his votes properly. So I think it's going to come down to the language of the 4 towns that have joined together in this version.
But wouldn't most of the other towns also want to do it that way?
Whether they want to exclude it or not is a really important question for them and their finance departments, but that's individual to each municipality.
Yeah.
As to whether or not they want to limit his borrowing to what he can get to cover the difference,
Right.
might be a matter of policy difference. I can see arguments on both sides. I would never recommend to you to not exclude the debt, to carry the debt in the operational budget. Listen, it may not even be that much money, $60,000, but it's $60,000 that is absolutely pledged and has to be funded.
Right.
So to have it in the operating budget is troublesome because it becomes an immovable object. And I've worked in other communities, because in Rhode Island, all general obligation debt is in the budget. So you can imagine, if you have borrowed 12% of, or 15% of your operating budget every year, you come to the budget process every year with only 88% of what you can raise is available to you to spend. It becomes a huge constraint. The debt crowds out the ability to raise an operating budget. Massachusetts, much more sophisticated and intelligent place, allows the voters to vote to exclude it so it doesn't interfere with the operating budget. That's really important, and that's why we recommend that it be excluded.
Can you list the other 3 towns again besides Douglas?
Millbury, Northbridge, Upton. And that's the best of my knowledge, right? So we do these meetings and we have our email exchanges, and the last time I saw the chain be refreshed by anyone, it was we were all on the same page and gone to our finance committees with the same language.
So you gave an example of this gets voted through, some towns restrict it, other towns might not. They go to see if they can get grant funding, and they get grant funding. If they do not get grant funding, then does it revert to the whole 10 million?
So the thing is, if I don't think so. I will research this well in advance of town meeting. If I had to write my exam book right now, I would say he doesn't have the authority to raise 10 from 9 votes. If he has 9 votes that say he can raise up to 10, then he's all set. But if he has less than 9 authorizing that full amount, and he doesn't get a grant, I don't think he's got a project. I think he's going to start over.
But doesn't this say in the first sentence that the town would vote to approve $10 million borrowing and then less grants?
It's contingent, though. So never, ever start with the first sentence.
Right, but we don't specify a dollar amount that we anticipate for the
You
grant.
cannot.
Right.
So that would be fatal, and bond counsel would not recommend, would not allow that to go
Again,
forward.
it's kind of, this would be an extreme case, but if he went and he got a grant for $1, right, that's a grant. And then the rest would be.
You are absolutely right. That is how the language works. If he got $1, then this language,
Kind of goes out the window. We
No,
screw ourselves away for $1.
$9,999,999
Right.
would be issued by BVT, and Douglas would pay its share.
We would pay a share, right. So again, we would have saved ourselves 13% of $1. But again, that's an extreme, end of the result. I mean, I don't think you would.
These accelerated repair grants, it can be up to 50%. I don't know if you'll do that well, but think about it, there's a really big difference between 10 million and 5 million. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, what about if the town does not vote on the exclusion, then it would go into the operating budget. That's what would happen.
Well, you're full of good questions tonight, Carol. Mr. Chairman, I get a rock star tonight.
That's why
Again,
we're
so-
paying her the big bucks.
Yeah, right.
The $900.
It's not going to me, it's going to the census.
I'll start with the extreme response and then kind of pare down to more detail.
Yeah.
In the extreme response, if 9 towns vote
Right.
what he wanted, the superintendent and BVT school committee recommended, it doesn't matter what Douglas does.
Right. We're still,
Only matters on the exclusion issue.
right.
So if the town doesn't vote to exclude it, and there's a sufficient support amongst the other communities to support the issuance of the debt,
Right.
it would have to come into our operational budget, because it's being voted for us. Now, I think, and again, this is another area of research, let's say we get all the votes in from the different towns, and now we know what the playing field is. And this warrant article fails at town meeting, but we know he's going to get to issue us, maybe we could still have a special town meeting. And if we really wanted to do it, I don't know if it would be worth it.
Yeah.
But to get the people to vote, to put it on the ballot for a vote.
Keeping that excluded.
You could still try to do that. Again, it's going to come out to somewhere around $60,000 a year. So the question is it worth having the special to, accomplish all of that?
We ready to move on, everybody? Heather, do you mind reading the motion, please?
I make a motion to the Finance Committee recommend that the town vote to approve the BVT roof reconstruction and replacement of the rooftop HVC project as printed in the warrant.
Okay, Heather moves. I'll second it. Everybody clear on the motion? Carol's got her reading for tonight to put her to sleep as needed. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. All right, Article 18, town-owned property in Uxbridge. Bob, you want to explain this to our viewers at home, what's going on? In case they missed the last Finance Committee meeting?
What's that?
So tell everybody where this land is by the town-owned property in Uxbridge.
I have a colored picture, which is a lot better than your black and white picture. This is a sliver of land that's along the Douglas Uxbridge town line. That's the dashed white line you see to the left of the big thick lines. This land is in Uxbridge. The Shell station is off to the right behind Old Lackey Dam Road. The Pine entrance just cuts the corner, the upper right-hand corner of that piece of property.
Yeah.
And that is the Pine entrance. The off-ramps to 146 are just to the right of that.
Yeah.
This is a sliver of land. Both these pieces are .83 acres. The small triangle at the bottom is half the size of this room. It's not much we can do with that. You'd be lucky if you could get a lemonade stand on there, and if you do the setbacks with parking lots, you can even have a lemonade stand on there. The gas line actually crosses, if you can see the cul-de-sac behind the Shell station on Old Lackey Dam Road.
Yeah.
The Tennessee pipeline crosses through the center of that, directly across Lackey Dam Road, across the Pine entrance, and it takes a corner within our land and turns completely north. So the top half of that property has a gas easement on it. The reason I'm bringing this land up is in case the development on the Pine project needs some of this for an entrance, we're trying to get the first step out of the way to make this available so the selectmen can dispose of this land. It might not be sold, it might be sold, we don't know at this point in time. There are some designs that include this piece, there are some road designs that do not. if they widen the road at that point in time, it might be needed. So there's a couple of scenarios where this land, we might be approached to purchase it from another, from the developer. So this is the first step, trying to get it before the selectmen, excuse me, and just have it available just in case.
Okay, questions from the
Yeah.
floor? Yeah,
I have
Carol?
a question,
Yep.
Bob. Why do you think the town owns that?
A lot of this property popped up from when we did the deed search on the existing warehouse that got built. We found out we owned 17.7 acres in Uxbridge,
Right.
on the other side of the river. This is the tail end of a sliver of the old Guilford of Maine, and then it was sold to Interface, and then Interface, we took it from a tax taking.
Are you sure of that?
Yeah, if you look at the deeds, this came right from Interface. I have the deeds right here.
Because, yeah, I remember what, this portion through here was tax title property that Bedoyan bought. And I thought that Bedoyan property that the town sold included going all the way over there, because I remember because you know that at one point I owned that gravel pit.
Right.
And I remember that access road was going across Bedoyan property. And you can see where it's going across that corner there.
Bedoyan owns the Douglas side,
Well, yeah, but
a sliver.
they had, see, the problem with it was the town lines had been off for years.
They moved.
They've moved. They've got 2 different degrees on it. One's a 10 degree, one's a 13 degree. But if they sold, see, I didn't see what Bedoyan's deed looked like. But you sure Bedoyan hasn't looked at this to see if she actually owns this?
We did a deed search on this, and this is described in much larger detail when they did some land taking for Lackey Dam Road.
Yeah.
They took a piece of this, and this is just the remnants of what remained, what they didn't use. We just received a tax bill from the town of Uxbridge on this piece, and of course, the municipality cannot tax a municipality.
Right.
Uxbridge owns land in Douglas.
Yeah.
We can't tax them. Same scenario. They had no idea we owned this until we did a deed search and found out that when we sold the piece of property for the new bridge, this was just an extension of it.
So the motion is to transfer the custody of the 2 parcels identified in the warrant to the Board of Selectmen for general municipal purposes or disposition. And the backstory would be, in case we need it later, we have it, right?
In case we need it in next week. If we miss this opportunity, then we have to wait until the fall meeting, and that might be too late for the developer to submit their plans to the planning board.
Would somebody move that then?
So moved.
Second.
Heather makes it, Mike seconds. Any discussion on that? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? So Article 18 unanimously. All right, thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
And then Article 19 is the 75 Northwest Main Street. Matt, did you ever drive out there and find it or not?
Yes.
It's in that little dip there, right?
Right.
Bottom of that hill, right?
Exactly. So the property owners approached us with this draft easement because they've been taking on stormwater from the road. It's a little history here. The town actually put in a temporary detention basin on their property, which is no longer servicing the amount of stormwater that they're getting. So we have a draft easement from them to go in front of town meeting so that could get authorized. I have a sketch here. I don't know if it's something you want to see. It's not legit, but we did have Stantec go out and survey, and they should have a survey ready for town meeting.
Okay.
But and the dimensions may change, but that's why this is kind of written generically so that we're approving a stormwater easement.
Yeah. So this is in cooperation with the landowner, right?
Yes.
And will enable the town to address stormwater issues. So that would be the motion then, that we approve this stormwater maintenance easement. Did somebody make that motion? Glenn moves it, seconded by
Second, Mike.
Michael. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained. Article 19, unanimous. And then MS4, Matt?
Yes, sir.
Article 20?
Yep, so this is a similar article to what we had last year for year 6 funding.
Yeah.
It's a similar amount for $40,000. Our municipal separate storm system, sewer system compliance officer, Representative Nick Christofori, provides recommendations to the highway department for certain stormwater improvements. They also do culvert reviews to provide condition reports to us, and their services are really great, and they also helped us put together the stormwater pilot, of course. But there's also a funding appropriation annually for their services, and this is what that is.
Yeah, we're part of a long-term state program, right?
Yes.
And this just helps us improve our stormwater management.
Right.
So the motion would be that we recommend the town transfer $40,000 from free cash to fund that part of the state program that we're involved in. So anybody want to make that motion? Lynn?
I don't think this...
Yeah.
And Michael seconding,
Second.
okay. Discussion on that, anybody?
What do we spend this money on? I mean, again, I understand it's to be a participant in this program, but specific types of costs, I mean, like membership fees, dues, or is it?
It's for services provided by the consultant. Sometimes they'll give us GIS data layers that show us conditions of our culverts. They'll give us certain recommendations to our highway department for improvements. But yeah, that's just the number they give us. So.
Anybody else? Questions for Matt? Right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. And then this last one, is this a new one, Gene?
Yes.
This master plan? That wasn't at our FinCom last
It
night.
was not.
What's the backstory there, Matt?
So unfortunately, this just didn't make it onto the warrant. I kind of had a panic attack last Thursday and informed the town administrator that this didn't make the warrant, even though we have a contract for master plan services, and we've had a master plan committee kickoff meeting already. But this is all contingent upon receiving
You have to tell me this.
this. So he thankfully put this on the select board's warrant, so they opened the warrant earlier today, added this item, and closed it at 6 p.m. today. So this article is for the master plan services for phase 1, and this is, the entire project will cost $145,000, but $50,000 and $65,000 are proposed to be part of a couple of grants. So we're looking to fund $30,000 of a $145,000 project.
Is this a new thing yet that we need CMRPC for, or is this part of an ongoing?
We've already engaged with a contract with them to do our master plan services, but it's contingent upon receiving this funding at town meeting.
Do we have annual master plan services?
No.
Oh,
No, this is a document that you typically update every 20 years.
oh, so we're
This-
updating our master plan?
We are,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, we need this money to help pay them to help us update our
Correct.
master plan?
Yes.
Okay.
gonna
Questions for
be-
Matt, anybody?
Yeah, I got one. Who's going to be involved in that updating process?
So we have a delegate from every committee. Ms. Kozalinski is our vice chair. We met last meeting. There's a few members of planning board, a member of conservation, a member of the open space committee, and we just got, Mr. Benerick is also a member of the economic development committee. We just got a residential volunteer who's interested in participating as well, and I'm also involved, so there's many.
Okay, anybody else? Questions for Matt Benoit?
Residential, is that Linda?
Question from the audience?
No, it's a gentleman who lives on Joseph Road, was a new resident to town.
Robert?
Yes, the last master plan was completed in 1996, I believe, and like Mr.
1998.
Benoit said, 20 years were a little overdue.
Okay.
I don't know, was it completed then, or was it when we were working on it?
1998 was the date of the plan.
Okay.
Yeah, but then I think we didn't complete it.
And we we implemented it for several years and produced a final report in 2007, I believe.
Right, right.
Yep.
So it was 2007 before. Believe me, I said, they better go faster on this one because I don't have that many years left. Don't I have to be driven to the meetings?
Did we do what the last master plan said?
Yeah, we did a lot of stuff. Yeah, we did a lot. We spent, I tell you, we spent years on it.
And a lot of the grant opportunities we have are, they need to hear that we've actually implemented our last master plan items, and our final report provided a lot of that, which is a really great report. So that should
Lynn, you
help
want
us
to
get
read
some
that
progress.
motion? You up for it?
I
Or
don't,
Heather, you want to do our last one for us here?
I don't have the proper wording. Heather's got it written down.
I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town to vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $30,000 from the master plan services provided by the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission.
Second.
Michael, second. Discussion, anybody? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Matt, do you have anything briefly for us between now and the town meeting, or you want to go home? Or both?
If I can keep it to, I will self-regulate and keep it to 5 minutes.
Because after this, we're just going to adjourn, I think. We'll do minutes. We'll do minutes before the town meeting in May. So, Matt, you have the floor.
To Carol's point, Mr. Chairman,
Which point?
doing anything,
Of
the
many.
general point, which is that Douglas is still a small enough town where we try to build consensus over time.
Right.
And our responsibility as appointed officials is to prime the pump with information, give you as much information as you can handle to make well-informed decisions about your own government. And it is also our duty to tell you about what's going on in the world, so that when you take your situational awareness, when you look at your compass, you kind of know where you stand. I was going to go through the highlights of the budget, but you already went through the warrant in some great detail, so let's skip everything here, because a lot of it's self-explanatory, and just go to the last slide. It's a table with what would appear to be a mind-boggling number of numbers on it, but I want to explain something.
This one, Matt?
The last page.
Same thing I had.
Here's a quiz.
Financial position.
We're off to a great start. We got the handout passed out. Is
passed.
everybody on the same page, through the last
That's
page?
the last page.
Hang on, Jean, you want one?
Thank you.
I like to stay on top of some comparisons and what different municipalities are going through in order to inform Douglas residents and taxpayers about where they stand financially, not only in terms of scorecard metrics like our reserve levels or the amount we've raised in the budget, but the part that people see and feel, which is the tax burden. And the overwhelming majority of Douglas, as we know, is single-family homes. And so that is the basis of this comparison. All of the numbers on this page come from the Department of Revenue. The analysis is done by the Division of Local Services, summarized into a database that is available to municipal officials to do queries. I think there's a lot of fascinating things that you can learn by looking across the page. The only thing that's not from that database, by the way, is the compound annual growth rate, so that would be the column on the far right. I did that because I was trained to do CAGR for everything. Just the thing. You can see how different some people's story is. I would draw your attention to the town of Hopedale. So they have had 0% growth in terms of single-family residences in 10 years. The same number of single-family homes as they had 10 years ago. And yet their tax burden on a single-family home is going up 63%, which translates to a compound annual growth rate of 5% a year. Now, the town of Hopedale, if you know your local history, did an override not that long ago. I think it may have been 2 or 3 years ago, which is pumping up that number. But what I would really want, so that's the easy one, right? You can look across that page and say, that town's story financially is very different from Douglas's. I would draw your attention to 2 towns that appear to be outliers. Douglas and Uxbridge are the only 2 towns where the tax burden on a single-family home has gone up slower than the total stock of single-family homes has grown in that town. So in Uxbridge, it's 2.8% growth of single-family homes, but the tax burden on the single-family home has only gone up by 2.4%. In Douglas, it's somewhat more extreme. It's 4.2% growth, which is very robust construction activity in town, and the average single-family tax bill compounded annually went up 3.4%. That's a meaningful statistic because it means whether you feel like you're being disciplined or not with this budget because you've had this 1-year influx of revenue, does not change the core values of the community in the way we build budgets, which is to be fiscally conservative and to not overspend and to have a plan that takes your full revenue picture out 5 or 6 years and says, we will not spend you to the point where you need to do any more overrides. But what that does mean is that when you have economic development and you have the opportunity to address service level needs, you should do that so that you don't fall off the cliff at some point in the future and have to close down a service or are unable to provide a service because you're not spending enough to get the people to do it, that want to do it. When I go to town meeting, I've said this in Westport, I would rather pay $100 for something that works than to have you tax me $90 for something that never works. That's a terrible deal. And our pledge as an administration to the people of this town is we won't run a fire service, we won't run an ambulance service with ambulances that don't start when you turn the key or that don't make it safely down the road without having to stop and pull over. That actually happened, right? So what we've stepped into with the override in fiscal 19 and the economic development now is the opportunity to settle the capital assets of the town and the personnel so that you continue to enjoy the services you deserve for the amount of effort that you put into paying these fees. But if you look at us comparatively across the Blackstone Valley and the surrounding communities, we are doing very well. We are much more conservatively run, and I think the proof will be in the pudding. I think some of these towns that are running close to the edge will have controversy, if not this year, then the coming years, that may result in them having to do an override. In particular, look at Dudley for evidence of that, right? The change in the single-family home value is up 83%, and their average tax bill is up almost 57%, and they still don't have enough money to run the government in that town. I had to do an override this last time. So that was my point in pulling all that together. The spaghetti graphs on the pages before it are just graphical
How did you
illustration.
choose some of these towns like Rutland and Spencer?
Rutland and Spencer are the 2 that are not immediately close to us,
Right.
that are very similar to us in terms of population and the mix of the tax base.
All right.
No, neither Spencer nor Rutland has a commercial tax base of any note.
So that's like,
Yep.
because they're not all Blackstone Valley.
No,
No.
but if I'm looking to live, if I'm looking to live in a rural setting, I might pick between Douglas, Rutland, and Spencer.
Yeah.
Just trying to get information
I
out.
think Charlton's different because of Route 20 going through it.
I think Charlton's taken a really different path, okay? So you're right, Route 20 is part of it.
Yeah.
They've had some colossal missteps. It's not the fault of the people that are there now, it's the fault of people before them, getting themselves mired in a huge legal controversy, which they lost, by the way. Not many people were following this, but that huge cannabis developer who wanted to build and got defeated by all kinds of political firestorm, the town lost that, and the town lost some solar appeals.
Yeah.
So they've been through a rough patch. But the other thing is Route 20 opens the door to all kinds of commercial development of a really significant nature.
Yeah.
That we don't have that. We don't have that secondary
Right,
highway.
Right, we don't.
16 isn't big enough.
No, 16, no. We
So-
get 490, 395 to that side, 146 over there, but from the other point of view, we don't have that big gash running through town either.
No.
So it's kind of nice. If Sutton's got that big gash running right through the town, divides the town. So,
Anything else, Matt?
So-
Okay, any
Like a
questions
good
for
5
Matt?
minutes, see that?
Anybody?
The promise is kept.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wojcik. All right, I'm looking at our agenda, everybody. So we've heard from Matt. I have FinCom budget discussion in case we needed to discuss something, but that will wait. Minutes will wait until May 6th, when we meet at 6:30 in that little room. Anybody have anything else for us on May 6th? Everybody else be here for the town meeting, as far as you know?
as far as I know.
All right, motion to adjourn, anybody?
So moved.
Michael, seconded by Lynn.
What time on May 6th, 6:30?
Yeah,
Is that the time of the...
meeting's at 7, we're at
Oh,
6:30.
the special town meeting is at 7?
The annual's at 7.
But what about the special town meeting?
Well, that's,
Okay, so we don't have to meet before it.
but as a group, we meet at 6:30, as a committee,
Right,
to get loose ends tied up and so on.
right, well, but don't they stop the special town meeting?
Special's first at 7, right,
Oh,
Jean?
wait, they open one and then they adjourn it and then stop the second. The meeting starts at 7
The
o'clock.
Yeah.
special one starts at 7?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I thought the special started at 6:30 then. All right.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye, opposed, abstained, we adjourn at 9:30.